This is Storybook Radio.
Chapter 17. Some time ago, eons before conceiving a realization of humanity, the Omniscient wanders through the lands beyond the Black Beach, a place where the air seems thick with quiet stillness. The landscape is both haunting and mesmerizing. Twisted trees with gnarled branches reach skyward like skeletal hands, their bark blackened as though scorched by an ancient fire. Jagged rocks jut out of the ground, forming unnatural patterns that seem almost unreal, their sharp edges glinting faintly in the dim, otherworldly light. A perpetual twilight casts the area in hues of deep indigo and gray, the light source unclear but ever-present, blending the surroundings in the atmosphere. The ground is uneven, scattered with patches of brittle, silver-tinged grass that crunch softly underfoot. Occasionally, faint whispers drift through the air, though their source remains elusive. The omniscient form glides effortlessly between gnarled trees and rocky outcroppings, yet his mind lingers on the shadows that accompany him. They flit along the edges of his vision, their indistinct forms shifting and merging. To him, they are companions, each one named and familiar despite their ephemeral nature. "There you are, Lithra," he murmurs, extending a hand toward a particularly active shadow. It flickers in response, as if acknowledging him. The shadow stretches upward, its form elongating like a flame reaching for the sky, before darting in a spiral around him. He smiles, a rare expression that softens his otherwise commanding demeanor. "I was wondering when you'd show yourself," he adds, his tone carrying a hint of amusement. Lithra settles briefly at his feet, its outline pulsating faintly, as though listening intently. "And Zorath," he continues, his golden eyes scanning the flickering shapes. He gestures toward another darker figure hovering near the edge of a twisted tree. "You've been quiet today. Is something troubling you?" Zorath moves hesitantly, its shadowy form rippling like water disturbed by a breeze. It edges closer, pausing as if deliberating. The Omniscient tilts his head, his expression thoughtful. "Ah, I see," he says, though the words are more for himself. "Perhaps it is the shift in the air, the way it hums differently this morning." He crouches, placing both hands flat on the ground, and watches as Zorath inches forward, brushing against his fingertips. A faint vibration travels up his arm, a connection so subtle it might have been imagined, yet it feels real to him, a silent communication between himself and his companions. "It's all right," he murmurs. "We'll face it together, whatever it is." The shadows seem to respond, their movements synchronizing as if reassured by his words. Lithra coils around him in a protective loop, while Zorath edges closer, its darker, heavier presence grounding the interaction. For a moment, the Omniscient closes his eyes, letting himself feel the companionship of these intangible entities. It is fleeting, fragile, but it is enough. Deep within, the Omniscient feels a yearning he cannot ignore. He dreams of meeting others like himself, beings who might truly understand him. As he moves through the shadowy landscape, his thoughts turn inward, questioning the reality of his world. Could there be more beyond the shadows? Could there be a place where he might find belonging? One morning, as the pale light filters through the twisted trees near his small hut, the Omniscient notices something unusual. A trail of footsteps presses into the soft earth, leading away from his dwelling. The footprints are small, precise, and unmistakably human. His curiosity ignites, mingled with hesitation. He steps closer, studying the trail. It winds through the forest, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. The shadows hover near him, reluctant to follow. "Stay," he tells them softly, his tone firm. "I need to see where this leads." Leaving the shadows behind, he begins his journey, the unfamiliar path stretching before him. Each step brings a mix of anticipation and unease. The forest seems different here, the air carrying an electric hum that wasn't there before. The trees grow denser, their twisted branches forming a canopy that blocks out most of the light. Yet, he presses on, drawn by an unshakable compulsion. When he emerges from the woods, the sight before him makes him pause. The black shore stretches wide, its obsidian sands glimmering faintly under a dim, unnatural glow. At its center stands an iron door, solitary and imposing. Its surface is smooth and unmarked, except for a keyhole engraved with the symbol of a black hat. The Omniscient approaches cautiously, his fingers brushing against the cool metal. He peers at the keyhole, tilting his head in curiosity. "What purpose do you serve?" he murmurs, running his hands along the door's edges. "It serves a greater purpose than you might imagine," a voice interrupts, startling him. The omniscient spins around to see a figure standing a short distance away. Paragon steps forward, his form solid and confident, a striking contrast to the nebulous shadows the omniscient has known. His voice carries a boldness, each word measured precisely. "Who are you?" the omniscient demands, his golden eyes narrowing. Paragon smiles, a genuine and disarming expression. "Someone who knows what lies beyond your world," he replies. "Someone who can guide you." The omniscient studies him warily. "Beyond my world, you speak in riddles." "Not riddles," Paragon counters. "Truth. There are other worlds, filled with wonders you cannot yet fathom. Places where the skies burn with light and the seas shimmer with life. Fairy tales made real." The omniscient's expression falters, his skepticism mingling with a flicker of hope. "And you expect me to believe you?" Paragon steps closer, his movements unhurried. "I expect nothing but your curiosity. If you choose to remain here, among your shadows, that is your choice. But if you long for something more, if you wish to see the truths hidden beyond this veil, the door will take you there." The omniscient turns back to the iron door, his thoughts a whirlwind. The idea of leaving his world, of abandoning the shadows and the solitude, fills him with equal parts fear and excitement. He rests a hand on the door's cold surface, the hat engraving pressing into his palm. "What if it's another illusion?" he asks quietly. Paragon's voice softens. "Every choice carries risk, but staying here is no less a risk than stepping through. Only you can decide what path to take." The omniscient closes his eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He takes a deep breath and withdraws the key from the folds of his robes. The small object gleams faintly, its intricate design a perfect match for the engraving on the door. With a steady hand, he inserts the key into the lock and turns it. The mechanism clicks, the sound echoing across the shore. The door creaks open, revealing a dark room beyond. A single distant light glimmers faintly, beckoning him forward. He hesitates for only a moment before stepping through. The air changes immediately, heavier and colder. The familiar whispers of the shadows are gone, replaced by an oppressive silence. The light ahead grows brighter with each step, illuminating the space around him. As the light expands, he realizes the walls are lined with bricks, each one cracked and weathered. The realization strikes him like a thunderclap. This is a prison. His steps quicken as the light intensifies, revealing a second door at the far end of the room. Standing before it is the warden, his figure imposing and still. In his outstretched hand is another key. "You've come far," the warden says, his voice calm but firm. "But to leave this place, you must surrender your key." The omniscient's grip tightens on the key in his hand. It has been his anchor, his link to everything he knows. The thought of giving it up fills him with dread. "Why must I surrender it?" he asks. The warden's gaze is steady. "Because freedom comes at a cost. To move forward, you must let go of what binds you to the past." The omniscient hesitates, his mind racing. He glances back at the dim room behind him, the bricks and shadows fading into the distance. Then he looks at the door ahead, the light spilling through its edges. With a deep breath, he steps forward and places the key in the warden's hand. The warden nods, his expression unreadable, and steps aside, allowing the omniscient to approach the final door. He pushes it open, the light flooding over him in a warm, radiant wave. As he steps through, the cold weight of the prison falls away. The air is fresh, alive with scents and sounds he has never known. The world before him is vast and breathtaking, a tapestry of vibrant colors and endless possibilities. For the first time, the omniscient feels truly free. He takes a step forward, his journey into the unknown beginning anew. He expands out of a book inside a cozy home in Hapesville. The black weathered book that enslaved him is titled, "This Isn't a Book."